If you carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members. Unlimited defense budgets, unmatched legal expertise. Carry the same level of support police officers have. Carry CCW Safe, the highest caliber.
Hey there, Patriots. Welcome back to Survival Dispatch News. We are here to stand. Excuse me, I got the wrong thing up. It has been a day, let me tell you, but we are here to stand tall for God, country, and the values to keep America strong. You're the kind of people that we cherish, and you cherish self-reliance, honor, and traditional Christian principles. And so we are here to give you guys some assistance in rolling up your sleeves to protect your family and traditional Christian principles and to bring unvarnished truth that you need to navigate turbulent times. So I'm your host tonight, John Wheaton, and I'm here flying solo. Let me tell you, just to give you guys a heads up, we were supposed to be at WAFT today, and a lot of stuff happened. And there was a series of unfortunate events, including a lot of it having to do with myself and flights, storms, and miscommunications. Oh my. So we had to actually change the plan and move the date because of those issues, and the date is going to be early in June. So the plan is to go down there then and do all of the stuff we were planning on doing today. So you guys get me. And unfortunately, I did not have time to put together the next episode in the series on communism. So today we are tackling some things that are very prevalent in the news. So the big one is obviously some of the revelations in the Sean Diddy Combs trial. So we are doing a deep dive into the allegations against Diddy, and what we're going to unpack is the drug use claims, legal battles, and the wild conspiracy theories pointing to a broader web of elite corruption. Is this Epstein 2.0? And how involved are the people in the government? So before we get to that, I wanted to give you guys a few things in the headlines, because there is a lot going on in the headlines, because it seems like the the news is never ending. So I'm going to go to this and present. So, as you guys know, Joe Biden has been in the news very prominently over the last couple of days for a couple of things. I would like to point out that back in, I believe it was October, November of last year, it's actually November because it was after the election, I made a prediction that there was some kind of thing that was going to come out about a terminal illness of some sort, or something along those lines, that was going to actually be a kind of the way that they would get by with him not actually having to go under oath, give testimony, or anything, because Joe Biden is clearly senile. He is clearly in the deep throes of late stage dementia, and that was apparent to anybody that has been around anybody with dementia. And at the time that Joe Biden took the presidency, in my opinion, unlawfully, I was dealing with my mother going through dementia, and she has since passed away. And watching Joe Biden handle the press conference really threw me for a loop, because I saw so much of the same actions that my mother was doing at the same time. So it was one of those things that I was like, this is clearly like, are we really going to just ignore this? And the media did. But there's some very, very interesting things that have come out, and they're getting louder and louder and louder. So this first one is from Buzz Patterson. The autopen is becoming a big deal in the media. A lot of questions are being asked, and this is a 3-minute clip of President Trump talking about this. So we'll play this. We're probably not going to play the whole thing. We are in the constraints of an hour, and I do want to get to the Diddy stuff. But I wanted to play this because this is becoming an actual talking point, which means that this is moving in a specific direction. I do believe that in order to protect itself, and historically, all communists, and I am lumping all of the deep state into communists, as I have studied more on communism, most of our very liberal, leftist and progressive politicians are communists in their heart. Barack Obama is a communist. And so communists will throw each other under the bus in the sake of controlling and holding power, or avoiding prison time or death. So I'm going to play this, and then we'll talk a little bit more about what I think this is all going to lead up to. Quick clip here.
Do you want to respond to President Biden being diagnosed with cancer? Are you going to call your predecessor?
I think it's very sad, actually. I'm surprised that it wasn't, the public wasn't notified a long time ago. Because to get to stage 9, that's a long time. I just had my physical. You saw that. You saw the results of that particular test. I think that test is standard to pretty much anybody getting a physical, good physical. We had the doctors at the White House and over at Walter Reed, which is a fantastic hospital. I did a very complete physical, including cognitive tests. I'm proud to announce I aced it. I got them all right. You proud of me? Yes. Your husband would be proud of me for getting them all right. It's a little risk. If I didn't get them all right, these people would be after me. It would be not a good situation. But I think, frankly, anybody running for president should take a cognitive test. They say it's unconstitutional, but I would say in that particular case, having a cognitive test wouldn't be so bad. But when you take tests, medical, as a male, that test is very standard. I don't know if it's given to everybody, but it's given just about. And it takes a long time to get to that situation. Now, I think to get to a stage 9, I think that if you take a look, it's the same doctor that said that Joe was cognitively fine. There was nothing wrong with him. Well, he said, if it's the same doctor, he said there was nothing wrong there. That's being proven to be a sad situation. And the autopen is becoming a very big deal. The autopen is becoming a big deal because it seems like that maybe was the president who ever operated the autopen. But when they say that that was not good, they also, you have to look and you have to say that the test was not so good either. In other words, there are things going on that the public wasn't informed. And I think somebody's going to have to speak to his doctor. If it's the same, or even if it's 2 separate doctors, why wasn't the cognitive ability, why wasn't that discussed? And I think the doctor said he's just fine, and this turned out that's not so. It's very dangerous. Look, this is no longer politically correct. This is dangerous for our country. Look at the mess when you're talking about all these questions on Ukraine and Russia. That would have never happened. As an example of our president, would have never happened. The other thing is you have to say, why did it take so long? I mean, this takes a long time. It could take years to get to this level of danger.
And he's absolutely right. You can talk to doctors. I listened to a lot of podcasts, and there's several, including the likes of Ben Shapiro, whose wife is a doctor. I have some friends who are doctors. Prostate cancer. I've had family members with prostate cancer. It's very, very rare that you get a fast moving prostate cancer. It is something that you start getting checked for. At ages such as your mid 40s, early 50s, all the way into your 70s and 80s. Some doctors don't necessarily recommend it when somebody is in at an advanced age, but very, very rarely do you not get some kind of screening, even just every couple of years. Because it's so slow moving, it doesn't it's not something that's necessarily concerning. And if they catch it in the early stages by doing, I mean, it's like a colonoscopy for like colon cancer and things like that. You don't have to have them every year unless you're in high risk. And you know, sometimes it's every 5, 6, 7 years. I've actually had 9 colonoscopies because they found cancerous tissue in my colon when I was 27 years old. And my father died of colon cancer stage 4. So I'm one of those that would be considered high risk, but even that is kind of similar to prostate cancer in the fact that once your doctor kind of sees that the risk is a little bit lower, then they'll put you on a 3 or 5 or even 6 year plan of getting it every 6 years. It's very similar to prostate cancer. Doctors would have done this, especially, here's the thing. This is the leader of the free world. This is the president of the United States. In my opinion, the president should get every blood test known to man. And I'm kind of in the agreement with a lot of these people who are saying this should all be public record and they should run every panel on the president of the United States possible, so that we know that our leaders are in good health and there is no risk of this snowballing and getting somebody that is not in good health. I will say that I do agree with Velcro. I don't think he has prostate cancer for one simple reason. My prediction back in November was that they will come up with a reason. And let me preface it with this. Joe Biden doesn't know where he's at most of the time. Just like anybody with dementia. He can actually have moments of insane clarity. And what they were doing in the campaign is they were trying to drug him up so that he had this insane amount of focus, but you would always see him kind of fall off. He might come out really, really strong, and then 20 minutes into a debate, he's like falling asleep. That's very characteristic of dementia. So he doesn't know. He only knows what they are telling him. That he doesn't know. And so really the chief villain in this is his wife and all of his handlers. And I don't necessarily believe that he has this level of advanced stage prostate cancer. Maybe. I'm not saying I absolutely am ruling that out, but the narrative doesn't fit. But what does fit the narrative and the prediction that I made back in November was that they will come up with a reason that he cannot go on the stand because he is riddled with dementia. He is a liability to the deep state because he could get on that stand and say just about anything if you pressed him hard enough. I don't know if you guys saw the videos of the guy that did the investigation on the documents case, where he was having to remind him of when Trump became president and all this kind of stuff. I didn't have that queued up, but that's absolutely riveting. And that guy's suggestion, that independent counsel's suggestion was, we can't prosecute this guy because he's clearly in senility. So they knew all of this, and this was all a part of it. So with all that in mind, if he wasn't the president, who was signing the freaking documents? Who was signing the executive orders? Who was writing them? Who was in control? We very often referred to the Biden presidency from 20 to 2024 as the third Obama term. And I truly believe that, because what you got with Joe Biden is you got all of the bad policy that made Obama unpalatable and lost him more Democrat seats than any president in the United States in history. You get the unpalatable policy, but you don't get the charisma. And that's why Biden was so much less popular than Obama, because with Obama, just being honest, he does have a certain level of charisma. And because of that, it gives him this kind of false shield around him. So with that being said, let's go to James Comer on Fox News talking about who was signing these executive orders.
You are going and looking at who is controlling this autopen because Joe Biden, I mean, he's demonstrating that he doesn't have all the cognitive capabilities they had. That interview was from 2023.
Yeah, that's hard evidence. Early in the President Biden's term as president, it clearly shows that he was in significant mental decline. It questions who was actually making the decisions. So what we found is not just with the pardons he issued, but many of the executive orders that the courts are now using to Trump-proof many of the executive orders that President Trump is trying to implement to make government more efficient. Many of these executive orders, as well as the pardons of Biden's entire family as a result of our investigation, these were all signed with the autopen. And clearly from that interview, which was many, many months prior to the heavy use of the autopen, Joe Biden wasn't capable of making decisions. He wasn't coherent. We think we've identified who the staffers are. Jason, you all have done great work with that over at Heritage Oversight. We're going to bring everyone that we believe was involved in any role in the use of the autopen. We're going to invite them to come in for a transcribed interview. If they want, then they will receive a subpoena and they will have a full-blown deposition. But we want to find out who was actually making the decisions in the White House during the last 9 months of the Biden administration when he was clearly in mental decline.
Yep. And so we're in a situation because a lot of these, as Comer says there, a lot of these executive orders got still signed post that investigation into the documents scandal, where he had documents in his garage that were actually top secret. And that investigation, the output of that was, as I said before, this guy said this guy is way too far gone mentally. He literally put that in his report. And now it's like, oh, no, it's fine. It was fine. Guys, can we wake up a minute? Because this is really important. And I think one thing that Trump said in this interview was very important. 57 seconds. Let's listen to this.
And it takes a long time to get to that situation. Now, I think, to get to a stage 9, I think that if you take a look, it's the same doctor that said that Joe was cognitively fine. There was nothing wrong with him. Well, he said, if it's the same doctor, he said there was nothing wrong there. And that's being proven to be a sad situation. And the autopen is becoming a very big deal. The autopen is becoming a big deal because it seems like that maybe was the president who ever operated the autopen. But when they say that that was not good, they also, you have to look and you have to say that the test was not so good either. In other words, there are things going on that the public wasn't informed. And I think somebody's going to have to speak to his doctor. If it's the same, or even if it's two separate doctors, why wasn't the cognitive ability, why wasn't that discussed? And I think the doctor said he's just fine, and it's turned.
And he's correct. He's correct. This is a scandal of the likes of where I have not seen, but it's not surprising. It's shocking, but it's not surprising. So, in all honesty, I am not surprised, and I am not blown away by this by any stretch of the imagination. So that is really where we stand with this, and I'm sure there's going to be more come out, but I'm still going to stick by my prediction that this whole thing with the cancer revelation is simply a method to keep him out of these legal hearings and to say that it's late stage when I don't believe it's late stage. If he has it, I don't believe it's late stage. And I'm questioning whether he even has it, because think of the false narratives. I mean, think of the press secretary, the former press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre. She was constantly lying, constantly telling falsehood, constantly spinning things in a certain way. So there is no doubt in my mind that there is very little truth to this, but it is is a tactical decision they're going to use to keep him out of the courts and possibly remove him in whatever way that takes into from being able to be targeted by investigations. And that's really what we have for the news that's going on. Headline news, other headline news as we get to our main topic, the meat of tonight's episode, because the topic strikes the core of why we as conservative Christians need to stay on guard. The allegations against Diddy, Sean Diddy Combs, aren't just about a man's downfall. They're a window into the moral rot seeping into our society. And we talk about this all the time. Threatening our families, it's threatening our communities, it's threatening the very fabric of our nation. We're talking about high-profile figures accused of everything from drug use to sex trafficking, whispers of satanic rituals tied to the elite. You know, this ties to the series on communism that I'm doing right now with you guys, because it's all satanic. It's all rooted in satanic principles and satanic practices. And I truly believe that if you walk down this road long enough, eventually you're going to get there. And it's a stark reminder of why we must shield our homes and faith and our communities from the corruption out there. So first up, let's talk about drug allegations that dropped today. The New York Post reported that Diddy's former assistant, David James, testified in court that Diddy was taking drugs daily, including a bizarre ecstasy pill that was shaped like Barack Obama's face. James said that he saw Diddy popping opiates during the day and ecstasy at night, and he even had to pick up drugs for Diddy and his friends. This isn't a personal failing. It's a public spectacle that shapes how people view these so-called role models. For us as conservatives, this matters because it shows the kind of influence that's out there and the kind of behavior that's being normalized for our kids. I mean, think drag queen story hour, all of this stuff, the textbooks that were revealed through some investigative reporters, including Christopher Rufo and libs of TikTok, made her whole fame, her whole platform pointing out these people that were targeting children on TikTok and trying to tell them that it was okay to get their genitals chopped off, to engage in weird sex practices. This is satanic evil. We think about the characteristics of Satan, of the devil, whatever you want to call it, Lucifer. It's to steal, kill, and destroy. So steal innocence. Reveal this stuff to children at a very young age, so it warps their view of sexuality, of intimacy, of what is God created for a man and a wife, to warp that for the rest of their lives. They actually say psychologically, the first sexual encounter you have in your life shapes your view of sex for the rest of your life. So if you can get them young and you can corrupt them young, then you can absolutely destroy their lives for the rest of their lives, and they'll have a warped view that only God can really change. And I truly believe that there is hope for those people. That's not what I'm saying. It's not the end all be all. But I know people personally in my family that were sexually assaulted by family members, and they had a struggle their entire life. And so it's not, we're still in this humanity, and those things still affect us, and trauma is a real thing. I hate the way that the woke and society have taken trauma and they've turned it into something that's just some kind of buzzword, like you're a racist or something like that, because trauma does exist out there. You guys know, we just adopted a little 4-year-old girl that was exposed to trauma. We just adopted her on Monday. And Piper's now changed her name, and she is Piper Wheaton now. And that's a beautiful thing. But we still see the effects of even the little bit of trauma that she saw and the things that she witnessed, though she was too young, drug use, sexual activity, all of that kind of stuff. And it does affect them. It's a real thing. But this is the whole this is the whole thing behind this. So now, as far as the legal side, let's move to the legal side. Diddy's in pretty deep trouble, and not just from drugs. He's facing serious charges, including racketeering and sex trafficking. Courtroom testimonies are painting a grim picture. Casey Ventura, who is Diddy's ex-girlfriend, took to the stand and shared chilling details about the abuse she allegedly suffered at his hands. She talked about being forced to into these drug-fueled freak-out parties where Diddy allegedly coerced her into sexual acts with others, and he recorded it. So this is a typical move of what we talk about in politics, where they find your vices and they fill them, and then they hold you captive by them to get votes in a certain way. I'm completely convinced that there are high-level people that are under the control of these people in the deep state, and they use people who are famous, like a Jeffrey Epstein, like a Sean Diddy Combs, to enact this stuff. So these freak-out parties, and in some of these posts, Liz Churchill was one of the ones that actually talked about this, and this is a very, very interesting thing as we move into our first real topic of this. Let me share this real quick. So this is really, really interesting in that this is the Pulse nightclub shooter. I don't know if you guys remember the Pulse nightclub shooter. I think it was 2017. And he is now saying that he was a part of this cabal and under control of Diddy. And remember, he specifically attacked a gay nightclub because of his anger towards, I believe at the time, and don't quote me 100%, but at the time he said that he was upset at the idea of homosexuality, and that some people close to him said that he had engaged in that. Let's watch a little bit of this. This is an 8-minute video, but we're not going to watch the whole thing, just probably about the first minute or so.
So in May of 2018, a man named Jonathan Odie opened fire at Donald Trump's Miami golf course and was shot and arrested by police. Now, Odie said that he was in the middle of a bipolar episode. That's where it gets interesting. Later, while being questioned by Florida authorities, Odie brought up something totally unexpected. He claimed that he'd been a sex slave for Sean Diddy Combs and Cassie Ventura. This video is courtesy of Real World Media. Take a look.
I had sex with Cassie and Sean. Basically, he would masturbate, tell me what to do with Cassie. I had like 15 encounters, and I heard lots of business. Because what they would do is Sean talks a lot on the phone and on the TV with people and stuff, and I was like a sex slave.
So at the time, Odie's story seemed.
Okay, so I misspoke. I said Pulse nightclub. I actually meant the Trump club shooting that happened, and this is all a part of this. And this is how these guys victimize, how Diddy would victimize people and use them for his own pleasure and personal gain and power. A lot of these people are interested more in the power than they are even the pleasure aspect of it. They get a lot of their pleasure from power and blackmailing and controlling people based off of the information that they have on them. And this is this is a dark, dark thing. Excuse me. Give me just 1 second here. I've got my stuff out of order here. And our next one is the freakout parties. Don Lucre. Look at this. Breaking news has revealed that in the Diddy freak-off trial, that former President Obama used to meet with a man that used to pick up drugs for Diddy, and confirmed that he met with Obama and other former presidents the hole it just got deeper. So let's listen to this real quick. 23 seconds. And I won't worry about playing the music. But yeah, so he met with a lot of people. David James, yes. With former presidents, which one? Former President Obama. What was your understanding would have happened if you hadn't done these things? And then this is just straight from the court thing. There's an objection. Don't want that stuff to get out. In the next part of this is the Ally Carter, portion of this. Sean Diddy Combs took drugs every day, including Obama-shaped ecstasy pills. So ecstasy pills, for those of you that don't know, is a drug that heightens your sensitivity. It is commonly used in stuff like sex parties, orgies, things like that. Heightens your sensitivity and increases blood flow, all of those things. And can cause heart attacks. A lot of people that die from heart attacks really young, a lot of them to overdose on ecstasy at these parties and stuff. So if you see young people that haven't gotten the stuff in the arm that die from heart attacks, a lot of times, if they're at a party, a lot of times it is from not understanding the power of ecstasy and taking too much of it. So this is a really, really important topic to us as Christian conservatives. If Ally Carter was trafficked in connection with Diddy, it highlights the human cost of this alleged network, reinforcing the commitment and to us protecting our vulnerable and fighting against exploitation. It's kind of insane. A good friend of mine who's been on Sean Ryan's, he's been on our podcast, and he runs a anti-trafficking ministry, and he is a former Navy SEAL, and he told me something that kind of blew my mind, is that most people that get trafficked, they get trafficked by somebody they know, and a lot of times it's a family member, which is insane, because I just think in my own mind and my own heart and my own character, I'm not going to let anybody do anything harmful to my children. But there are people out there that don't care about that, and it's very sobering. And so we have to fight against this all the time, and not let up at all. So our next one is Ianka Deaton, as she survives a trafficking in the entertainment industry, calling P. Diddy just a low-level manager and in a larger scheme. She was asked, why did she lose his protection? Why? In an eye-opening episode of Going Rogue, now on YouTube, Rumble, X, Spotify, and more. So you guys can look for this and watch it. Let's watch this little clip, 37 seconds here.
So entertainment is always a means to an end. It's used. The entertainment industry is always used to facilitate deals. And so P. Diddy is low. He is like one of the, what I like to call them, regional managers, of the entertainment. And he's already been replaced probably.
Wow.
So the question is, why did he lose his protection? He lost his protection for a reason, right?
Yeah, so I plan on watching the rest of that episode. I've watched little clips of it on X and stuff like that. And the reason that he lost his protection is because probably someone bigger was in the crosshairs. And a lot of times, as I said, they will sacrifice a lower level manager, a lower level person into the meat grinder so that they don't get in trouble. So the next one is from Adriana Curry. And she says, Diddy is just the tip of the iceberg. Celebrities, rich people can have whatever they want, whenever they want. They get more and more extreme to be able to excite themselves. They have no clue just how many people that the masses adore are absolute demons on this earth. So, and that is actually 100% true. If you watch interviews with former porn stars or escorts, or there's a lot of those videos out on YouTube where they talk about, even Sean Ryan had a former adult star out there, and they talk about when they get invited to they get paid a lot of money to go to these sex parties in Hollywood or in these very, very elite areas in the country. And the people that can literally buy anything. So think somebody like Jeff Bezos, like there's nothing in this world that's outside of his reach financially. So you can pay for whatever, shall we say, deviance that you are into, whatever kink that you're into, and they can pay for that constantly. So it's just like taking a drug. You become tolerant to a certain level. This is why people overdose on drugs, is because the first high gets them really good. And then the next high, maybe a little bit less, and they become tolerant to that. Functioning alcoholics, all of this kind of stuff. They have to continue to chase getting that next high. And that's why they end up a lot of times overdosing. Well, it's the same thing with fornication, with deviant sexual behavior. They want more and more of the most disgusting, stuff that would revile us, stuff that would make us literally throw up, or what these people are into. And they want to pay people to do these things. Part of it is to degrade the person, but another one is to excite their own demonic desires. And it's warped. And this is the reason why God is very clear about fleeing sexual immorality and staying away from those things. It's an extremely important thing for us to know and to understand. The next one is surprising, but not surprising. I guess you could say more shocking. And this is from Concerned Citizen. U.S. TV star Steve Harvey was having relations with Diddy for over 20 years. Here is him talking about baby oil and pizza. Yes, it's disturbingly exactly what you think it is. So let's watch this clip.
Baby oil it just go with everything. You can get baby oil on pizza. I done got it on pizza before. You taste it, you can't even hardly taste it. I had baby oil all around my mouth before. I don't even know what's on there. It's just a baby oil type night. It's just baby oil. All right. Praise the Lord, baby oil.
That's insanely disgusting. Insanely disgusting. And I think a lot of us know, that this is just commonplace. They speak of it as if it is just the norm, and it is in these areas. It is just a part of this. And yes, Sodom and Gomorrah 2025. I completely agree with that. And that's a little side note. When you think about the kind of depravity that we're talking about, the kind of just unbridled deviance, is you're talking about a level that normal people, we don't reach. But I do actually think that part of the reason that we're seeing this just go more and more and more, and the deeper, is the fact of the proliferation of pornography on the internet. It is so easily accessed, and it destroys relationships. And if you are out there in our audience and you struggle with porn addiction, any of that kind of stuff, get help, because it is important that you guys get control of that, because it is a slippery slope that leads to a very, very dark place. And it's just like all of these other drugs we're talking about. You continually chase a high until you're watching stuff that you never thought that you would before. And it just slowly, it is programmed. Pornography is programmed, and it is unrealistic, and it is something that is meant to lead you down a path. It's, in my opinion, very demonic. And it teaches you to have expectations of your significant other, whether you're dating or whether you're in a marriage, that are unrealistic and are repulsive in a lot of ways. And it's godless. So let's watch this. So this is James Woods. For those of you who take your political advice from the queen of the Diddy list, take a moment to listen to this nonsense. If you have a brain in your head, skip this step and vote for Donald Trump and JD Vance. This was last year on November 4th, but let's watch this real quick.
I promised myself I wouldn't get emotional, but you know what? We should be emotional. We should be upset. We should be scared and outraged. We should. Our pain matters. We matter. You matter. Your voice and your vote matters. And look, don't be afraid to make people around you uncomfortable. Invite people around you to be the change, to go out there and vote. Nobody likes having tough conversations or talking about politics, but trust me, I've been in some of these rooms. I see the way power works in this country. They love it when you do nothing, okay? A non-vote is an agreement. It just makes it easier for them to do whatever they want, whatever serves them. And this election is about your life. It's about you and me and my kids and your kids. Don't make it easy. Make them pay attention to you. That's your power. That's your power. Your vote is your power.
She's also really bad at reading a teleprompter. So, oh my goodness. And here's another one from the Salty Goat. So rumor has it that Diddy hasn't stopped eating, that Diddy has stopped eating, likely out of paranoia that someone is going to try and poison him. Look who he's standing here embracing right here. The queen of, they were suicided. And you can imagine he's probably not sleeping much either. How long until the birds start singing for anyone who will listen? And yeah, that is exactly who you think it is. That is Hillary Rodham Clinton. So it appears that the Clintons may have had their fingers in both of these rings, and we'll wait to see more details come out in the coming days, but it's not surprising at all. And it's interesting if Hillary is implicated in this. Of course, it will be covered up a lot by the media, but it's a massive red flag for political corruption intersecting with the elite immorality of Hollywood. And we know that these circles have rubbed up against each other for decades. And it's just insane. Here's another one, and this is really, really interesting, where Diddy explosive Prince was in fear for his life. So the singer Prince, Purple Rain, very famous singer, passed away a few years ago, was in fear for his life, according to people close to him. And this is about a 44-minute video, so obviously we're not going to watch that. But we'll watch a little bit of it and get a little bit of the synopsis of it. Fast forward just a hair.
Harassed with deep fakes and other explicit images distributed against their will. This is wrong. This is just so horribly wrong. It's a very abusive situation, and today we're making it totally illegal. So is it
that in Hey Dave, thanks for having me on, man. It's about time we spoke about these demonic networks that initiate people through these dark ceremonies, let's say. Perhaps Clive Davis brandishing his bishop exposing his crown jewels to Diddy, Diddy thereby turning around, allegedly doing this to Justin Bieber, ingratiating Justin Bieber into these evil acts. And round these networks go, whether it's here in the UK right now, we've got a gaggle of rent boys, aka male models, aka male escorts, young East European looking lads who have been firebombing Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister's residences and his cars. And this is all over the news this week. And the mainstream media are absolutely not looking into the backgrounds of these
What do you
people.
mean firebombing? Like, what does that mean? What do you mean by firebombing?
Two of our Prime Minister's properties have been set on fire and a car, and they've arrested 3 people this week. The first one was a 21-year-old Ukrainian male escort, allegedly. The second one, they've just put a picture of the second one out today, and he looks like a boy band member from the 1990s.
It looks like Boy George in his prime.
So this is the targets. And yes, I do believe that when you actually look at the timeline, and you also look that Diddy had unlimited access to Justin Bieber when he was very young, like early teens. And he would go and stay with him while they were writing music. And Ludacris was also involved in a lot of that stuff. So this is just stuff that over the top is just insane. And it's stuff like this. This is nothing to see here. Just a little girl admitting on video that Diddy picked her up off the street and to go to his home to play with his kids. Diddy tried to remove it from the internet, and even his fixer could not do that. The internet is forever. Let's watch this. 37 seconds.
So, I was on the streets, and then Papa Combs decided that he would like to be a caring man. So then he saw me and decided to pick me up and said to come inside and play with his kids.
That was on a live stream, by the way, and afterwards Diddy tried to cover it up, but you can clearly hear her words there. He picked her up off of the street and said to come in and play with his kids. Pretty crazy, right? Especially when you can.
I'd also like to point out something. Let's watch this again. I want you to look at how this girl is acting. If you've ever seen anybody under the influence of stuff like ecstasy and things like that, it looks a lot like this. She's slightly slurring her words. She looks like she's a little off balance. Let's watch just this first few seconds of this so you guys can see. That's the first thing that pops out in this video to me is she is clearly under the influence of some sort of drug.
So, I was on the streets, and then Papa Combs decided that he would like to be a caring man. So then he saw me and decided to pick me up and said to come inside and play with his kids.
That was on a live stream, by the way, and afterwards.
Clearly under the influence of some sort of drug. And that's sad because that girl may be like 14, maybe even younger than that. And where does this get us, really? Because what do we do with this? And here's another really, really important thing. Guess who? Guess who is the prosecutor? Maureen Comey. Maureen Comey is the daughter of former FBI Director James Comey. She was one of the prosecutors over the Epstein case, and she is now the prosecutor for the Diddy case. The deep state fixes everything. And this is clearly a deep, deep web that is connected to all of this stuff. And I tell you what, it's insane. It's insane. So let's watch. I've got a couple more posts and then we'll close this out. But this is just, I would say that the layers of this, we're not even to a really significant layer once we find this out. And I hope and pray that this ends Hollywood, because Hollywood needs to end. They do nothing but try and indoctrinate our children. They do nothing but push these wild satanic agendas like gender nonconformance and LGBTQ, the rainbow jihad, all over us. Still to this day, it's like 3% of the population is actually in the LGBT. But if you watch a TV show or you watch a movie, you would think that it was like 50%. And that is a part of the programming of this satanic cabal. So let's watch this next clip. And this is, you might recognize this guy hanging out with Diddy, his boy. Let's watch this.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all. Thank you. And I just want to say how much I appreciate Puff Daddy for doing the kinds of work that he's doing, because he doesn't have to do this. But this is part of what is important about giving back.
We applaud you, and I want to apologize for not sweating, but I do this so much. I'm so cool. I just want y'all to see everybody I'm interviewing is sweating. I'm not even touching my brow. I'm so cool, and I want to apologize. I ain't trying to make you look bad or nothing like that, but I'm just so cool. We a t-shirt.
I tell you, if he was wearing one of those fancy designer clothes he's designing, he'd be sweating just like me.
Yeah, there you go.
Just like their homeboys. And they were. Make no mistake. So here's the last post, and then we're getting to close this down. So this is a taste of the Diddy blackmailed people. He threatened his female bad boy records employee that he'd release a sex tape of her, ruining her career. So this is Inner City Press. This is a clip of this. When did you meet Sean Combs? Regina Ventura, 2006. My daughter signed with his Bad Boy Records. He was her boss. Then they started dating. They moved to LA. Read this message from December 2011. Cassandra wrote, she said, Sean Combs threatened to release a sex tape and go after her and Mr. Mescuti. How did you react? Regina Ventura. It made me sick. Sean Combs demanded $20,000. He said to recoup the losses due to Mr. Mescuti and from my father and myself. So clearly engaging in blackmail, clearly engaging in all of these things that are disgusting and gross. And we have to stand up against this. So as we wrap this up, what are the key takeaways? The allegations against Diddy are a stark reminder to stay vigilant, why we should be engaged, why we shouldn't be reclusive, why we shouldn't let our kids just go to anything, because there are people like this that want to engage in these things in our communities, because satanic activity and sin is prevalent everywhere. So I've actually made a very, very important decision in our house. Our boys don't do sleepovers anymore. And even if we know the people, we'll let our kids, go hang out for a while until, close to their bedtime at some friend's house, as long as we vetted the parents and we trust everybody. But we don't let sleepovers happen. Not anymore. It's not a thing that I even want to open up a door to, because the reality is you don't know everybody and you don't know the reality. And narcissistic people and sociopaths can appear very, very friendly. It's how they actually coerce people to do bad things. So whether it's drug use or legal charges or conspiracy theories, the whole situation shows us why we can't trust the elite, and we need to be more vigilant. And it's sad to say, because I really believe that the country that I grew up in is not the country that we live in now. So if we're focused, what should our focus be? And that is building God-centered homes that prepare to stand firm against darkness. We teach our children to speak up if they see bad behaviors and the wrong activities happening. We teach our kids to be open with us because we're the best, and we are commissioned by God to protect our children and our families. So it's very important that we stay involved. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode. So if you guys would head over to our Substack and Patreon, or if you are interested in becoming a guardian, that is one of the ways that you guys can get access to some of the insider chat. And that's the guardians, you get access to the Signal chat, which is a private chat that all of our guardians are a part of. And you get the survival guides. That is a series of eMags that give you really good insight into surviving any kind of SHTF moment. We also have our actual survival guide, which is a 228 page that will take you through systematically every situation that you can imagine when it comes to survival. So next time when I'm back on Sunday, we will resume our series on communism. But what we're starting to see, and I'm just going to say this before we sign off, what we're starting to see is clearly that all of this stuff is connected, and it's connected because it's all satanic. It's all anti-God. And we've allowed this spirit to move into our country and into our communities. I was watching a documentary. I recently watched the series Masters of the Sky, or Masters of the Air. It's the newest mini-series from Steven Spielberg, who did Band of Brothers and The Pacific, and actually a couple of my favorite World War II movies or miniseries. And this was about the 8th Air Force. And there's a scene in that I would highly recommend. It's a very well done show, and really, really well done. And it really opened my eyes to what our boys were facing in the airs over Europe with the Luftwaffe and not having any fighter escorts or anything like that. Those bombers were just sitting ducks and got mowed down until we actually got long range fighters. But it's a great show. But it's also, there's a section where it shows some of the guys that got shot down. They bail out. They get taken to a Nazi prison camp. They get interrogated. And one of the things that was a really, really interesting part of this that kind of, I got to thinking about it, and I was like, man, that's mind blowing. When they would get somebody, a lot of times these guys would still have their dog tags on, so they'd find their name. They'd find out where they lived. They had spies. The Nazis had spies in all over the country that would go to these boys' hometowns. They would pull all of the latest news off of their newspaper and send it back to Germany. They would find out who their parents were. They would find out where they lived. They'd have all of this information. So they'd keep them in solitary for a couple of days. They would let their spies in the United States get this information back to them. And then when they started to interrogate them, they'd say, well, your mother's Mary and your father is Billy. And it was the guys that actually went through it. They said it was mind blowing. They knew all of our personal information. That was in the 1940s. To do that kind of an operation, you would have had to have had thousands, maybe tens of thousands of spies in the United States. What happened to those spies? They didn't go back to Germany to fight at the end of the war. Not very many of them were caught. What happened to them? Well, they stayed in the United States. They integrated into our society. So a lot of this evil comes from these ideologies that we allowed to infiltrate our countries. Part of me is wondering, maybe the Red Scare should have been taken a little bit more seriously. I don't know. I'm sure there was bad things that happened, but we have to stay vigilant on this stuff because we've allowed this all to come into our country and to infect everything that we know, that we hold dear, and all of the principles that this country was founded on, which is the Bible. Spoiler alert. It's all being systematically destroyed by the forces of darkness. And we have to stand against that. Guys, it's been awesome being with you guys for another episode. And this was a fun little break from the communism series, which we're about halfway through. So we'll reconvene on that on Sunday. Tomorrow, Chris will be back with a normal episode. And you guys keep a lookout for a lot of the contents coming out. I am currently editing a bunch of videos from our Georgia trip a couple of weeks ago. And now that I'm not at WAFT, I actually have a little bit more time to do that. So that maybe given me a little bit of a chance to get this all squared away. But thank you guys for being here and being a part of this. We couldn't do this without you guys. And I'm really happy that you're here. I can't say enough about that. Don't forget that if you're interested in the Guardian membership, go ahead and head over to patreon.com or substack.com and look up Survival Dispatch. On patreon.com, it's patreon.com/Survival Dispatch. And on Substack, it is survivaldispatch.news. And you guys can go over there and check it out. We would love to have you guys give us your support and show you that, or show us that you really appreciate what we are doing for getting this news out to you guys. And until next time, it is important that we stay vigilant, and we'll see you guys soon. But until then, stay safe and God bless America.
And they're using the word God again, and they're not hiding from it, and they're not being told to take it down, and they're not saying we can't honor God. In God we trust. So important.
Even in the darkest night, thank God for America. When it's time to stand and fight, thank God for America. Through every struggle, even when we fall, we answer to a higher call. It's time for us to unite.